So our next speaker is Nikitas Loukas. He's a gateware and hardware designer working on the CMS Electromagnetic and Hadron Calorimeters for the phase 2 upgrades. And he's a member of the CMS collaboration for over 10 years now. Today he will present his work on phase determinism in the transceivers, following up from the hot topic of the previous session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. So in the left side, we see a slice of CMS. And on the right side, we see what will be the phase 2 challenge. So here we have protons coming from two sides and a picture that the detector needs to understand and reconstruct the collisions. To do that, in simple words, we do two things. One is increase the granularity. So like we have a picture with, we take with more pixels than before. And the other thing is we increase sampling. So we take more pictures per event. Sampling means clock. And the clock needs to be precise and accurate. Precise means jitter, and accurate means next time we restart, this is not jumping somewhere else, the phase. So it's understood how to achieve low clock jitter, and that is by designing the firmware as well as schematics and layout properly. And that will give you expecting to have +1 picosecond more or less, maybe a little bit more, per FPGA. But accuracy is more challenging. Accuracy, you need then, if it jumps, if the phase of the clock you use to sample jumps, you have to calibrate with physics events, and probably you have to do each time the detector restarts. And then there is a question, does this phase drift with something going on the fabric of the FPGA? The big picture is that you don't have one FPGA. You have many in a tree system. One is recovering the clock and forwarding to the next stage and so on and so forth. And they are interconnected with fibers. Sorry. And there is a development with a time compensation link that deals with things like variations in the passives, in the fibers. But there is a caveat on the FPGA themselves. So if we run the system without interrupting, we get one, and we plot the skew between master and recovered slave clock. We will get one Gaussian. But if we start resetting, it seems that we start getting two Gaussians with 50% probability, so the clock will be jumping between two positions. And that happens on one node of the system, so you can expect a result on the end, neighbor ADCs having accumulated 0, 10, or even 40 if you have 4 stages. So that's the challenge. To do that, we use the first version of our board, the Barrel Calorimeter Processor version 1, and we put that together with the master FPGA VU118, fibers, everything into a thermal chamber to keep the temperature very stable, to reduce other effects like temperature. And we got the SMAs here, and we got the clocks. This one that everybody uses, RXOutclock, RXOutclock PCS, and RXRECCLKOUT, the red, and we plot them. We saw right away that this effect of the two Gaussians comes from the RXUSRCLK, while the others don't have. And we also noticed that the RXRECCLKOUT has hundreds of femtoseconds stability. So the guilty is the delay aligner, but we cannot bypass it. Also, we evaluated the jitter, now coming into precision, and we saw that this RXRECCLKOUT, the red, is 4 times better than the other one, contributing only 300 femtoseconds per FPGA. if we could use that. We will see next slides. Then we went to the next version of our board, which uses a Vertex Ultrascale plus a bunch of optical links up to 28 gigabit per second. But we also, considering the previous studies, we added flip-flops on the main board and DDMTD running on the zinc. Could be on the FPGA also. And we did this circuit, which is why discrete flip-flops? Because it's 100 times better than the ones of the FPGA, these ones we use. And why? And then we calculated with this scheme actually the skew between the RXRECCLK clock and the RXUSRCLK. And we use some firmware for colleagues. Here you see credits. And what we did is we calculated the modulo between these clocks. Why the modulo? Because this clock, it comes straight from the CDR. Inside here is 5, for a 10 gig, is 5 gigahertz clock. And then after dividing it, we bring it to what we want. But we calculate the modulo of this measurement with the bit period. And because it's more than 6 gigabit per second with 2 UI, because it's configured in double data rate, the transceiver. So we can get one of the 128 possible phases. But if you calculate the modulo, it's fine. So we can have a good reference. And then to do the tests, we added a delay, at the output of the fabric, so we can delay and start evaluating how good the DDMTD measures. And we plot the DDMTD respect to, and the other side, the LaCroix scope output. And we see a very good agreement and linearity also at 0.996. We also added a jitter feature on the FPGA. That's by the way, the CMS Electromagnetic firmware. On the blue side here is our oscillating loops. With them, we can enable and increase the consumption. Like here, for example, 30 amps, 10 degrees will be heated, the FPGA, just to see what's going on when the temperature changes. So we start testing. We measure with the DDMTD with the red dots and the LaCroix output, and we see a good agreement. You see also there is a small trend that is the DDMTD of the BCP is following what is going on in reality. And the error is very small, and the standard deviation of the error is 0.3 picoseconds. I can change from here. Then we started heating up. We noticed that the RXRECCLK drifts less than RXUSRCLK with temperature, and we took this difference into account by multiplying what we were getting from the DDMTD, and you see that now here that after adding like about 200 watts on the FPGA, moving the temperature 30 degrees, which is extreme, we can even follow and monitor this drift at a precision of picosecond. And then we return back to the normal temperature and we start resetting. And we see the same thing, 2 zones. The phase, the accuracy was like, the phase was jumping between these two, but we can also see that with a DDMTD, so we can measure that. And the error here is 4 peak to peak and 0.6 standard deviation, the error between DDMTD measurement and reality. So taking all this into account, we designed the BCP version 3, which will be released in a month, will be sent to production. And in this case, we just make a small change. We took this clock out, break it to 40 megahertz, and try to use this one instead as the LHC recovered clock than that one. This way, we are bypassing the FPGA fabric completely. So the idea is we no longer calculate any modulo. We take the measurement as it comes from the TD-MTD, and we just reset the clock divisions until we have the skew between the two less than 2-unit interval. In this way, we choose the phase of the RX recover clock divided. That is the phase we want. And the question is this procedure fast enough, or CMS or somebody else needs to wait ages? So we did that a couple of 1,000 times, and we got some statistics. It seems that 50% less than a second, 20% less than 2 seconds. There are some cases that we have to wait 15 seconds. However, so far we were just running from the Linux, from the Zinc SoC with a Linux inside. We're just running bash scripts, was very, very slow. So in the future, we will do this automatically by firmware. So we are expecting to be fast. And the procedure is very simple. You want to align, you reset the MGT, you toggle the signal, wait for it to lock, which is the division of the clock, 5 gigahertz clock. And then you check the TD-MTD. You need a coarse measurement, so no averaging, nothing. If it's 60 more picosecond error, don't care, because you just need to find less than this number, the UI, and if it's aligned, you are here. So that was all. The conclusions are, first, that this feature of these two zones with 50% probabilities everywhere, it doesn't depend really from the AMD transceivers. And there is a backup slide if you are interested about what happens when you heat up with these two zones. And also, this RX user clock drifts 0.5 picoseconds per Celsius. Conclusion, second, you can use the RX user clock, the RXRECCLK clock, to monitor what is going on with the RX user clock, and with a good precision here. And you can also monitor for temperature variations that affect this clock. But conclusion third, it's that it's better if you want to have a deterministic phase, bypass completely the fabric. Use the RXRECCLK clock and the tagging from your TCS, TCDS, from the LHC to find the phase of the RXRECCLK clock, which is the one you want out of the 128. And then you have the best jitter and the best accuracy, less than a picosecond, even half of it. And the final message is avoid fabric and take a holistic view, not just firmware. FPGA is both firmware and hardware. That's all.
Thank you so much, Nikitas, for a
Thank you.
Clear presentation. Your questions? Clear.
Paul.
Thank you for the talk. It's very nice work. I'm curious, the measurements that you took, how many different hardware devices did you use?
So here, I mean, all these latest were done with the Virtex UltraScale Plus. So with this latest BCP V2. The previous ones that showed here were with the KU115, which is a Kintex UltraScale. But the point is, if you go to this backup slide, we can see here that these effects of the two discrete zones collapse or open, and that depends on temperature. In this example here was the thermal chamber we showed before. we kept at the thermal chamber the temperature very stable here at 25 C, and we start heating up with these heaters the FPGA, and we start see that the skew between master and recovered clock from the two different FPGAs, master and recovered, is like 2 zones, here is 1 zone. So sometimes in the lab, you run this test, you don't see this effect. Some other times, maybe it's a sunny day, you don't have good air conditioning, the light comes in, you may have 2 zones.
So clearly there's a temperature dependence. I'm wondering if there's a silicon dependence as well.
As far as I see, with the Kintex UltraScale and Virtex UltraScale Plus, they are not but in any case, I think the best thing is just to use the RXRECCLK, and this is an example. It's a simplified V3. As said before, you just take out the RXRECCLK and use that as your LHC clock after finding after resetting here until you have the good phase, and then you're stable.
Thank you.
Maybe with the microphone.
Clock, you go for you divide such that it's a 40 megahertz, but your user clock you're using 320, right? Or the user clock is.
Let me come to which slide, just to have an illustration of your question. Can you ask again, please?
Yeah, so there you have your RXRECCLK. You are setting it at 40 megahertz. Is it correct?
So if you compare, you have the same frequency. In V2, we have 320 on both.
Okay.
In V3, we'll have 40 on both.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Thanks.
I mean, if you want to use the RXRECCLK, of course it matters because it needs to be 40.
Yeah. Thanks.
As your LHC clock. Any other question?
Since we have maybe a couple of minutes more, I take the occasion, and many of you are here. In FDF already, we have seen a lot of work and thorough work on AMD transceivers and trying to tame them. I'm wondering, how would you guide the user into using one solution or another? And maybe that's a question for
Yeah. Yeah, from my point of view, if you need accuracy and precision, just use this one. I mean, that's the thing. You use this one just to find, after dividing the phase you want, it seems that is fast. I think it'll be faster what we're showing. And that's, I think, our approach. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair point, right? The RXRECCLK is not going through the fabric. It's really good quality. Then, okay, there's also a trade-off that you have to sacrifice like a ref clock pin. So
That's true.
If you can do that and your board is equipped with that, I agree with Nikitas. And it depends a bit on each design, I guess.
And there might be some, since you do TC-Link, there might be, just by seeing that, perhaps the performance of TC-Link may be better to be tested, because you don't pass through the dirty fabric, and you may have a more symmetric TC-Link loop to compensate. Just guessing.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. We have to measure more.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I was wondering, is this not getting problematic to use discrete flip-flops with FPGAs, because the voltage levels that are used for these discrete components are usually completely different?
If it's problematic to use discrete flip-flops?
Yeah, so like ECL, so I'm not sure if you want to get a fast discrete flip-flop, that you get the ECL or something like that. It uses some different voltage levels. This was not a problem for you.
No, you need to make the schematics right, of course. But the thing with the discrete flip-flops is that they are better. Setup and hold times are better than those of the FPGA, maybe 100 times better. So it will give you theoretically a very, very femtosecond precision.
Yeah, we used this for completely different reasons as well, but what we noticed that voltage levels of FPGAs are always going down, and discrete logic, they stick like at around 5 volt operation voltage.
The voltage of the FPGA should be within some limits, right? I mean, should not go down.
But anyway, maybe I try to explain.
Okay, we can discuss to understand better.
Good. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.